Welcome back to the Eye of Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have the long awaited return of an awesome guy. I've only known him for, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, and I talked to him for like an hour and a half, and he's my friend already. I'm going to go ahead and, Mark, give me a north and south. Is that okay? You're my friend. Anyhow, we have on Mr. Mark Elliott Fults today, and we're going to heat after the last show, which was 2 weeks ago now. He was like, "Oh yeah, I've seen the Bell Witch." No, what? And amongst the million other things that he was talking to me about, but you know this, she's infamous. Though it's infamous. We always consider a witch to be a female, but it's not necessarily true, is it? But he was like, "Yeah, I've seen it, and channeled it, powerful." Yeah, I was like, "What?" And he was just like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay, let's have you back on." And he was like, "Okay, all right, let's do it." And then 2 weeks later, here he is already. So if you keep finding yourself come back to the podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. You can check me out on Rumble. You can like and subscribe over there. You can leave a comment over there as well. You can also find me on Spotify. Every Wednesday, I have a live show, and every Friday, I release an episode just like this one. And who knows, maybe you also have a story or an interesting point of view, or you've had an encounter, or you've had something in your life that you would like to come on and share with me on the iJupiter podcast. Please do me a favor and write the email, the iJupiter podcast at gmail.com. So, with all that being said, all that being done, let's welcome to the show Mr. Mark Elliott Fults.
Howdy! How you
Hey,
doing?
buddy. I'm doing good, man. How are you today?
I'm great, fat and sassy.
Fat and
Emphasis on the fat.
Absolutely. The fact, you getting warmed up for Thanksgiving, or is it pumpkin pie season? What's going on?
Oh my lord! It's just well, every season is just a season to eat. Period. So every day is a
American
holiday.
American traditions, yeah, dude.
Amer-
Dude,
it's an American tradition.
yeah, I've actually dropped a few pounds. I'm always sweating down here in the Yucatan, so I'm
Oh,
always and I got my teeth cleaned today. Look at that. That was nice.
uh,
It's only been 2 years because I didn't have any money to do so. But anyhow, a little bit more than I need to be said, Mark. Do
well,
me a
it's
favor.
okay.
Yeah,
Where can
it's
you
okay,
say it
buddy.
if you can't say it on your show? You
Yeah,
know.
well, I'm sure I say it what I do is I sing it in the shower. That's where I say stuff. Um,
Yeah, I understand.
all right, Mark, do me a favor. Introduce yourself. Once again, please do me a favor. Be so kind, and maybe if you're promoting anything or friends or anything like that, just go ahead and do so now, please.
All right. I am Mark Elliott Fults. I'm 62 years old. I've been a witch since I was 18. I've been in metaphysics. I mean, I knew I was one when I was 11. When I was in a little Baptist family, I knew I was one. And then, out of that, I became a third degree Gardnerian. And then when I was 30, I was and came back from that. And that opened up my skills into more of what I wanted to get into, I guess. So that turned out to be, there were a lot, there was a lot of really good things that came out of my experience.
And a
And
lot of bad
so
things
now
too,
I'm an
of course.
author, and a lot of bad things too. And author, artist. I've got an album of metaphysical songs that should be coming out next year if I'm still not croaked. and and
You
then
play an instrument?
oh no, 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 I write songs, and I have a little nerd friend who is
What do you mean by
fantastic
right?
at
What do you
music.
mean by right?
And
You mean lyrics?
uh, yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I write lyrics. And
Okay.
I'd been trying to get a album done, get because I've been writing for 30, 40 years. And this new friend of mine at the time came to my house, was sitting on the couch. We were talking other stuff, and I said, I had just reached the end of my rope trying to find someone to do the music. And I said, it's been a pain in the butt to do this. And I've been looking for someone who does music. And he goes, I do it. and he's sitting on my couch, and I'm like, I was like the duck on a June bug. And he has a studio. He has a in his house. He's the kind of thing, and one of us, little brainiacs, and we've come out with it's going to be called the Witching Tree, and it's a wild album. I love it.
I'm a music guy. I love music. I'm a musician
I
myself, right?
love music,
I
and I've
play
always
guitar,
yeah.
bass, drums. I'm a vocalist.
Well, we
So
may have to. We can collaborate.
we can't. Yeah.
You may
Do you do
not.
some
You have to
singing?
hear. You have to do hear some of my songs before you go. Yes,
Okay. Oh
songs
no,
were
no, no,
very
no.
earthy,
There's,
rev, or I
you're not
did
going to
like one that
hypnotize me over the power of the internet, Mark. Well, that's cool, man. That
you.
you finally get that out. Because I know for
Yeah,
me, the
and
only thing I can always say is that I want to create. I need to.
yeah.
I'm a painter too. I'm a painter, musician, stand-up comedian. So I do a lot
Well,
of creation too. Yeah.
you know, I can write fairly good songs. But it's the music part that's the problem. Getting it all recorded and getting all that stuff. But it just happened sitting on my couch, and so for the last 2 years we worked. Now he's in Hawaii, so we're getting ready to round it up and then get the. We have really 2 albums worth of stuff,
Okay.
and some of them are metaphysical songs. Some of them are really, just very interesting. A lot of them the ones on the first album I wrote sitting in his house. I just channeled them,
Okay.
and so I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Uh,
But
you have yourself a nice tie dye T-shirt on. So I'm going to suggest the run of the mill stuff like maybe
Summer
Pink
of
Floyd
Love.
and maybe Tool. You into Pink Floyd or Tool?
A what?
Pink Floyd or Tool? Do you want to talk about metaphysical music?
Oh yeah, I mean all of it from the '60s. I mean they
Oh, for
were. That's when
okay.
they were expanding. But this is my partner's shirt. He lived in California, so this is the
Okay,
summer
so,
I
but,
love. This was like the 30th anniversary, and but when I was little, my reincarnation thing was I was stuck on things like band music until I was 10, big band music from the
okay.
40s, and
I love
then
that stuff.
and I was growing up in the folk music. I loved folk music and Mama Cass, and and I love singers like Janis Joplin
Oh, she's
and
great.
incredible people. Actually, I'm writing a song that includes them called Psychedelic 60s. But just that amazing burst of but that they were taking drugs and getting into the Akashic Library. That's what happens when you do LSD or drugs at that time, and everybody was doing them at that time, and it just opens up the deep subconscious. And
Right.
the problem is that they got hooked on the drugs, and then it destroyed it
All of them.
overwhelms the talent part. But boy, the first rush of talent they had, you can't beat it. And
Yeah, what is
as
that?
far as that,
Hendrix,
but oh
Joplin,
yeah, yep,
Jim Morrison. That's just
Jim
the three off the top of my head.
Morrison, Moody
That's just the three off.
Blues.
The Moody
I love the
Blues.
Moody Blues. Oh my
Oh, they're
God.
great.
Mamas and the
1997.
Papas were my. Oh yeah, I loved all of them. And I
Yeah.
love things like the Cowsills and all that. So it was.
We should listen
I grew
to
up.
Tool. You should listen to Tool.
I'll have
Have you
to.
ever
You
heard
have
the?
to send me. You have to send me a link.
I'll send you some
And
Tool, and I'll send you some Yob, which is some
okay,
very heavy psychedelic doom metal, but
okay,
it's all about transversing the human consciousness and going out into the universe and or sleep. Don't dope smoker. It's one song,
oh yeah.
1 hour and 4 minutes. And it took them 4 years to write and about $300,000 to do. Just wasted on weed writing the song. And
Uh,
they go. It's see ya, Mark. It's I love it. I love it.
oh, I love
It's
any kind of. It was a very expansive time, and that was when people
yes.
really went from the '50s into the '60s, going, ooh, Ouija boards, and we had dark shadows, and we had people having seances and talking to spirits and
Yeah,
witches and vampires every day.
people
And
underestimate that cultural shift, don't they? From the
woo,
50s to the 60s, it was incredible. It
it's
was like
incredible.
I can't even explain. I wasn't around back then, but you can
Oh,
see. You had everyone in their 55, Bel Air. Hi, honey, how are you today? With the little hats on, and then at the
yeah.
end of 1967, it's just "Excuse me while I kiss the
It,
sky." Do do do.
yeah.
You're like, oh
It
shit,
was like
what
they
happens?
threw it all off. And it was, and what was popular. But I was still stuck in the 50s and 40s kind of thing when I was a kid, which was very weird because none of the rest of my family were. And I was like, and I was like, oh, this change. I was clutching my pearl. But then again, as a child, you're sitting there with all this great stuff like laughing and even though there were horrible things happening here in America, like the president, the uprisings and stuff, but that's what we had to have to get where we were. And then all that horrible stuff, it balanced by comedy and music and color and
Comedy:
you
Lenny
know
Bruce, George
Lenny
Carlin, Richard
Bruce.
Pryor,
Oh
even
yeah,
sorry,
Phyllis
but
Diller,
Bill Cosby was great
Bill
at
Cosby
what he
was
did,
big.
at that particular part of what he did.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Fantastic. You can sit down and listen to his album, and you're just like, this is. I
Oh,
love comedy. I love
It
comedy.
was,
Comedy
it
is
was, I
one of
do
my
too, and it's like I loved all of it, and on TV, you had Dark Shadows, you had Bewitched, you had Genie, you
Twilight
had all
Zone.
this fantasy and Twilight Zones and One Step Beyond and Night Gallery and which I adored all of that stuff, and then in the '70s, late '70s, it all went to cop shows, and I thought,
Hardcastle and McCormick.
Nothing was,
It's like,
the funniest stuff they thought was funny was Three's Company. And I'm like, what? And
yeah.
that kind of thing. So,
Richard
but
Pryor live in concert, 1978, one of the best
yeah.
stand-up specials of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Just you have to listen to it. It's one of those things. He came out
Oh,
with that
yeah.
red shirt on, and the lights weren't even up, and he's like, "All right,
Nope.
all right, sit down." And it's people don't understand. They think comedy's all,
Amazing.
"Oh, you're a comedian. Tell me a joke." It's like that's not how it works, dude. It's a presentation.
No.
It's
It
got a
was,
lot of twists and
yeah.
turns.
Oh, yeah. Because, it went from everything being so correct and controlled and correct and censored to being blah. And then
Yeah,
but
and
now
then it went
it's
to
gone
corporate.
so far out there that now sometimes we have to rein it in a little bit, and because it's now, how do you get shocked? you know Back then it wasn't hard to shock somebody,
Right,
and so I'm a child from the '60s, so that's what I grew up in, and so it
awesome.
wasn't a hard step for me to go at 11 years old going, I'm sitting in church, but I think I'm a witch. And
I'm just.
and it's like, and
It's such a funny way of saying that, dude.
I thought, oh my God, I'm going to hell. How is it I'm a witch? Why am I a witch? And then I found out later, I have ancestors who were spiritualists and gypsies and everything. No wonder. I was an older. I have so much Welsh. I think English and Welsh and Irish and Scottish and German, and it's like, so I have the old country kind of thing. And but I mean, when you're a little Bible, I mean, people remember me from school, which I didn't remember doing this, but they go, the skinny boy with the cowboy boots and the Bible. And I went, ooh, I was that. And I was the one going, don't you use God's name in vain. And that was my only thing. Don't use God's name in vain. And don't say hell. But I mean, I was but I knew in the back of it I was a little witch. and the psychic, which was not excited. They weren't excited when I was born. Take my word for it. So they were not excited when I exhibited any of this stuff, and it's like we at least have three other ones. So
Mark, how did you? It takes. Okay, this is what I want to ask you. It's kind of a personal
sure,
question. You go from this, in a box,
a box.
in a family that's religious, knowing you have these gifts and knowing that you can't speak them aloud or practice
Yep.
them, to kind of doing it, and the shame of that they put on you, the
Yeah.
condemnation, to now being a person that I feel like I've known for 40 years.
Yeah.
How do
Oh yeah,
you
I feel the same
be
way.
such an open person? How did that happen?
Oh, you know, I don't know because let me tell you what, and then too, by the time I was 3, because I was real gentle and I was very fragile, and I had brothers who were boys, and I had a sister who was a bitch. She was a bitch princess, and when I came along, they just went, "That's gonna be a choir." So they beat the hell out of me. They pulled my arms would come out of place, so my father would pull them out, try and toughen me up. And so I
Oh,
would go to school sometimes with my arms out of place. Um, they did everything. They just were, any aggression they had, they couldn't take out as much on the older children, so they just took it out on me. And I was so introverted and so awkward because of all of that that when I went to school, it's like chickens who flog one of the other chickens. The kids smell it and they went for it. And so I don't know, but when I was in high school, 10th grade, I grew to 6'2", and that was the last time anyone attacked me or did anything like that. I was getting attacked all the damn time at home and at school. And I was in a music department thing, a choir thing, and they did a play, and all of a sudden it was like, add fuel to the fire, and I just went, and the doors were open, and I just
wow.
went, this stuff they're doing is not for me, you know. And all of a sudden I just started becoming myself, and then I became a little witch. I joined a coven, and it
Just a
it
little
turned
one.
out in the end not to be a little strange. And I was friends with the person for years before I joined that before we did a coven,
Okay.
and we were great friends until we did a coven, and then they started doing some stuff from his. He had been in one, but I didn't know the truth about the old one because I was still green as grass. I didn't know I had psychic abilities. They knew it, they saw it, they wanted it. But they didn't, you know, they didn't tell me the truth about what it was about and I found all that later toward the end. And I was like, when you all of a sudden you wake up and you go, "Oh my lord, I'm in a cult. I'm in a cult. I'm in these witches who want to kill me." And because they were that way, if they could, and it was also, it went from being wonderful and great and being accepted. And I was just about to get my third degree, and that's where it clamped down. They thought I was, now he's programmed enough. We can pull the trigger because he'd been friends with me for 10 years. We were close. He was a makeup artist, I was a makeup artist. We worked in a costume company. We worked in doing all sorts of, we had a great time. But he thought everyone, he was Charlie Manson and thought everybody else was going to be little Charlie Manson girls. And it's
Wow.
like when they went pulled the Charlie Manson thing on me, I was like, hell no. And I'm like, kiss my double wide psychic derriere as I run. And they're like, well, we want what you've got. So if we can't have, if you don't want to be with us, we'll just take it from you. Take the energy.
Wow.
And so that's kind of what happened when I got attacked. I think they were taking credit for my attack magically. Um, but all of those people associated with that, um, the leader of that, yeah, it didn't end well for him. But and they were trying to groom other people to be Charlie Manson-ish girls, trying to send them to get me when I worked in a metaphysical store. So it turned out to be very interesting. I mean, so I don't know. I've always wanted to connect with people, but you know, I was shy and I was beaten down, and then somehow I just worked my way to it. I don't know how to
Right.
explain it,
Yeah, it's like
but
a inner thing. Like it's an inner thing. Like we're so bombarded with what they think you should be or telling you what you should be, and then
oh
when
yeah,
you find that within you that you are, and you find yourself being happy within that, the people who don't like that just kind of slough away anyway, and the people that kind of match that groove or your vibe, you seem to be
yeah,
gravitated towards each other. And yeah, I completely understand that. I was kind of a dork in school too, really skinny, really tall, didn't have many friends. So, I know exactly where you're coming from.
in the family I came. We about disappeared. Then to be a gay witch in the
Hmm.
South,
Yeah, I can imagine.
and that,
I
and a
can't,
and
but I
raised,
kind of can.
and so I was the devil incarnate. They thought I was a devil worshiper. I was like, no. It's like there is no devil in what I'm doing. And what I was doing was Wicca. And
Okay.
then when I had to be trained in Gardnerian, which I hated, because I wanted to be something more like an Alexandrian, but all of the choices back then, back in the 70s when I started, were all these macho, saying they were goddess centric groups, but what the people were doing with them, the one I was with, it was too much of a machoism kind of thing. And
Hmm.
to give you the example, here I am, I'm gay, but of course I had to be closeted. But everyone hated gays back then, so you were closeted, and they were homophobic towards gays in witchcraft. And
Such a
so
weird leap.
I just didn't, no, don't ask, don't tell. And my friend, who was the leader of the group, had been my friend for 10 years and acted like he was shocked when he goes, "You're gay?" And I thought, can you not tell? I mean, can you not tell by the pink poof
Like I
around me?
told you after the first episode, I just thought you were eccentric.
I am. I am eccentric. I am everyone's eccentric aunt, uncle, whatever you think it is. I've told my nieces and nephews, I said, you can call me Uncle Mark or Aunt Mark. I don't care. Just, you can call me anything except, something
Fair
that
enough.
pisses me off. And, but no, I am eccentric. And it's because I'm just out of sync with everything else, I guess. But,
You're not out of
but I
sync.
think when I
I
know
think
something,
you're in sync. Not the
I
group
think I'm
either.
in sync.
Not
Yeah, and it's like I think a lot more people are in sync more than they think they are. The problem is fitting into society, which good lord, it's all religious and political and
consumerism.
hypocritical, and all these people giving me trouble about being gay. Most of them had boyfriends, that were men. And yeah,
It's
yeah,
true.
gay person. And I mean, my father, you know, when
It's
I
what Richard
was
Pryor said.
dying, yeah. And
Remember that? He
I
was like,
asked my
"Oh,
mother,
I don't do that. I don't do that at all." Nighttime, they were knocking on your door. Remember he?
oh, saying awful
Yeah,
things to me, saying
yeah.
awful things to me, pulling my arms out of place, and beating me, kicking me, going, I hate your face. I want to blow your face off because I hate you. Well, and then, I found out, I knew who his boyfriend was. And I was like, ooh. And when I was dying, I asked my mom, and she goes, well, men, when they get a little older, they need to try something else. I'm like, what? If
Oh
I
my
were
God.
already dying, I would already kill. And then she thought I was going to die and not be able to tell it. So it was hysterical.
So
But
it's just been a progressive step. You just realize that one day you're going to be yourself. You're going to
yeah.
follow this path. Now,
Oh,
how, Mark, did that path lead you to going to northwestern Tennessee?
well, I was in Tennessee. I was in Chattanooga. Then before I moved here, I lived in Lafayette, Georgia, near Corpsewood. And then after I froze my Batutsky off, because it was cold, I lived in an antique house that at 2 in the morning, I have insomnia, so I'd be up at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind would just blow through. And we were like, so when the person was going to sell the house we're in, we went Florida because my cousin lived here. And then I ended up here in Florida. And I love it. I mean, it's so much easier to do it. I mean, there's a lot going on where the anti stuff is going on everywhere. But still, the main people here are very open. I've met quite a few interesting people that very metaphysical, very hungry for everything, and they're hungry for the old structures. And because when it became New Age, it's just like, I'm this, I'm a witch, I'm a channeler. And there was a loss of the old
Authenticity.
ways and the the discipline. They just went, I can do this. And then they started doing it. But if you don't have yourself grounded, then it's not the same thing. I mean, that's when I deal with psychics right now. Other psychics, some of them I used to work with when I would sit and listen to her conning people, and I just want to get up and smack her into her next life. I thought, you scumbag. And it was all about, had done psychology, had taken psychology in college or something, and she was using psychology to do readings and then acting like she was psychic. And I thought, no. So I've been introduced to a lot of people who are doing it, making money off of it, that don't have the skills, but they have the chutzpah. And then I know several that are really, really good. That I mean, you got to know people you can go to, and so it's been very interesting. But people are turning towards wanting a more structured, older way.
Yeah,
Every so often, especially like around now. I mean, back in the bicentennial era,
76.
I had a great time. 1976 was great. There was a energy crunch going on, and we had a fireplace. We cooked on the fireplace a lot. We did our homework by oil lamp. We heat with heaters. I mean, because there wasn't a whole lot of, everything just was outrageous. So priced, kind of thing. So we went to the old days, and I really hooked into that, and I've never been unhooked from it. And so, and right now I'm doing a metaphysical. We do it with Denise and Ron Pridemore. Uh, at my store, the first Thursday of every month, we've done two already, where it's a
Where's your store?
paranormal meetup. Yeah,
Where's your
at my
store?
store.
Oh, you have a
Yeah,
store.
I have a store, Gypsy Moon,
Cool.
and at night They all come, bring a chair, and sit down. And wait, last time we had like 16 people talking metaphysics, ghost stories, and whatever, and talking like we do. And it's been great. People are hungry for it.
All right.
And I'm doing the psychic worm stitch because I'm going to try to put it, what I do, out there so someone can take it and run further with it. I'm not threatened by somebody learning to do something. It's like, do it, be better, learn it.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
um,
So,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mark. I would be not remiss that, like, when we talked in the green room after the first recording, that you told me about your encounter with the Bell Witch. Would you maybe
Yeah.
enlighten me a little bit about that? Because you were talking about tons of things like we are now, and I
I
love
know.
every
I'm
minute of it. But
sorry. I rambled.
no, no worries. And then my spidey senses went because here, like I was telling you, I sent you a little bit about it. It's called the Ishtabai. That's the infamous
Yes.
witch of the Yucatan Peninsula. But the
Yes.
Bell Witch is, in my opinion, maybe because culturally where we're from, it's even more infamous. And you said that, so I got to hear what you got to say about this.
Okay. Well, the Bell Witch is in Adams, Tennessee, which is really right on the border, I guess, of Kentucky. And it's one of the early stories I heard. It's really one of the first big American ghost stories. And there was a man named John Bell in the early 1800s, and a large landowner, blah, 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 rich, whatever. And he owned properties, and he was apparently made some enemies. One of the enemies was a lady named Kate, who
Mm-hmm.
I found out now, John Bell's wife, Lucy, I think is her name. I didn't
Yes,
get a chance to brush up on it.
I did.
Lucy. All right, did you look up who her sister was?
She was, I think, sister or something. It's like the wife of John Bell, was somehow relation
She
to.
was sisters to Kate, the one that was the
Okay,
Bell Witch creator, or not creator,
summoner.
operator,
Oh, okay,
and
operator,
and he screwed apparently. Oh, I'm sorry. He allegedly.
alleged.
I think what he did is he conned her out of her property,
Right,
and she was a widow, and
right.
whatever happened, he crossed the wrong person. But I didn't know that Kate was Lucy's sister. I didn't know how that connect. I didn't know that connection. And at some point, I think Kate, before all this started. But what happened was she was going to get him. And of course, a lot of people at that time in the 1800s, they had just come to America from England, Europe, all sorts of places. So from the old lands, we have witches who were
Heavy duty.
heavy duty. And what you have to understand as a witch, what does a witch do? They understand energy and understand how it works and how you take different energies, put them together to get a result. But if you're a old school one, they had magic, ancient magic that had been going on, passed down, especially from Europe. That if you had any of the understanding how to unlock some of that, it's like going to the gun box. You just go in and you find the right gun. And so she lock and loaded and let this energy off on John. And they started seeing it the first time I saw it. He was out hunting with his son, and
Yes.
saw a dog looking thing, which I've seen these kind of things. They're like a Hecate, black dogs and kind of thing. They're a symbol of from the underworld. And they were shooting at it and stuff like that. And then it got to where things you would hear this gurgling noise at the house, which, well, I'll come back to that. But then it started this weird noises, and making this awful noise. And then at a certain point, it became words. And then it became a voice. And she I think she called herself, she named herself after the woman who brought her in this
She called
circumstance,
herself Kate.
Kate
Yes,
Kate Batts.
Kate Batts.
and
Exactly.
so she was going to get him, and she tortured everybody except for Lucy. She loved Lucy, and I never understood why she loved Lucy like she
There
did,
was
and she
actually
would
an
bring her
account.
gifts.
There was an account where Lucy was really sick,
Yeah.
and she was actually singing to her and trying to help her get better. It's very
Oh, and
interesting.
she would bring her grapes and things like that. Thing and
Right.
fruit, exotic. She would apport things from Europe and things that they had never seen. They didn't even know what she was bringing her, but she would bring her these gifts and these fruits, and then knowing that, well, this was created by her sister or brought into existence the way it is, the consciousness the way it is. That's why it was so in love with Lucy. And it also wanted to protect the daughter, but it was harassing the daughter because the daughter wasn't going to listen to it about a man. And so it would pinch her, smack her, and eventually she didn't marry the guy. But there's a great story about what was it? Andrew Jackson wanted to see it,
Right.
and they were coming. His group was going to come close, and they had a witch hunter who thought they were going to really get it. And allegedly, the story is that the witch appeared to them. She wasn't. They couldn't see her, but she'd appear and talk to them. I mean, come and talk to them. And she said she liked Andrew Jackson in the story. So she says, you've got a, you know, the witch finder. He started screaming and hollering because something was sticking him in the butt, and he was running. She tortured him. She said, now tomorrow I'll come back and expose some falsehoods in your group. And they were all like, let's get out of here, please, please, please,
Yeah.
please. And so they had to
I think
leave.
the line was, I think Andrew Jackson, because they were supposed to stay there for like a couple of days, like 3 or 4 days or something
Yeah,
like that. And I think the line from him was, "I'd rather face the entire British Army or military than to spend another
yeah.
night at the John Bell's house."
He
That
would
was
then face the Bell Witch.
right, or something like that. It
And
was, yeah,
yeah, and she was after them, and she wore John down so hard that he got very sick. And then one day, they had a doctor come in to see him because he was dying, and he was dead. And the witch was screaming and hollering and happily going, that he was dead, and I got him. And they found a little vial of something,
something. Yeah,
and they gave it to a cat, and the cat had convulsions and died. And so she was singing all the way to his
right.
grave, to the
Because
funeral.
everyone was, I think everyone who seen that he was, unlifed in his room there were like, okay, he was been poisoned, and
Yeah,
they all pointed at his wife, and his wife was like, and then like the voice came out and said, no, 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 it was me, I
it
did
was
it.
me, because
Yeah,
she was that was
crazy.
her directive, and that was what she was drummed up from. And then afterwards, after the funeral, she was still hanging around a little bit, and after a while she said, "I'll be back in every 7 years." And then the next time she started coming, the mother said, "Just ignore her," and they wouldn't feed the energy, and eventually it died down. But there's a cave on the property, and because it has a lot of crystal content, it's a great place for the spirit to live, and so she lives in the cave. But what she was drawn up for, contracted to do, she had done it. So now she was free. So she's been in the cave ever since. And actually, the cave, people would get lost in that cave, died in that cave, disappeared in that cave. And after the John Bell incident, she actually helped people. There was one guy who got stuck in a cave, fell in a hole, and she went, "Don't worry, feller, I'll get you out," and pulled him out of the hole, and scared the hell out of him, or a heck out of him. And she helped people. She could be very helpful, but she was drummed up to kill John Bell, and she did. And uh, so go to modern times. I mean, it's one of the oldest American ghost stories, but she's not a ghost. She's a consciousness. So about 20 years ago, I guess, maybe a little further than that, maybe 2025. Now it gets a blur. I've done some of it, but some friends of mine, Cynthia Brundage, and a friend of hers named Paul, they wanted to go to the Bell Witch, and of course, me, I was like verklumping that I could go. Oh, please, I gotta go. I got to go, and I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to Adams, Tennessee. Now I've been in a place in Kentucky that it was like a tornado alley. It was awful. It was awful. Um, but when you go to the Bell Witch from Tennessee, I think it was like 3 hours from Chattanooga, 2.5, 3 hours. But when you cross the thing, it says, you are now entering Adams, Tennessee. There is this big dead tree with about 11 buzzards in it. And I thought, the national bird. And I thought, ooh. Um, and then you've crossed. I mean, where I lived, I was only like an hour and a half from where Deliverance was filmed. So I
Okay.
mean, we come from some really country things. Well, this was really Children of the Corn kind of area.
Wow.
And not too long after we had seen it, they had sold it for $75,000. The property,
Which is nothing.
75,000, which it's like it's a world known kind of thing. But there was nothing in Adams, Tennessee, and you go forever until you find this little road. You go up, you pull up to a field, and there's a big sign there, or a bit kind of a gate post with a sign, and you stand in line. And we actually got there pretty much first in line. And then all these Japanese tourists and people started coming out of the woodwork. And then there was probably 30 people. And I was like, wow. Because, I mean, we had seen nothing. It was, you see cows and fields. And then you go through the field. Somebody on a golf cart came in, let us in. They have a little fake rebuilt cabin to imitate the cabin that the Bells lived in, which it was you had to pay to go in there. And I was like, no, 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 no. They had a witch on a stick kind of concession stand where you could buy, trinkets.
Which on a stick.
And and it's like then all of a sudden you look and there's this big hill with a big another big when I went, yeah, if it's still there I don't know, but there was this big gnarled dead tree and I went, that's gotta be it. But it you went to the edge of the hill. It was a cliff, but it kind of looked like a big hill going up, and you have to walk on a very precarious looking pathway. It's not handicap accessible. I don't think they may have some way, but not for me. And I was like, I was determined to get to this joint. So we get to the cave, and you have to stand in line. And I was looking at the outside of it, and at like 20, 30 feet above the opening, which the opening, if you see the pictures of it with the wrought iron fence thing, or grate,
Hmm.
up above that, there was a spider the size of my hand spread out, which we didn't normally have those where I came from. And I thought, holy mother of pearl, thank you, it's out here, not in there, And so we get into the cave. They said, don't take any rocks, don't take anything. They will, people have problems. There's a place where people bring back things. And when you walk in, it's a double cave that's open when you come in. So when you come in, you look up and it's a cave above you that's kind of open. And when I was seeing it, of course, I see energy, and it looks like the blue stuff. If you see a animation of neurons and stuff like that, you see this real pretty
Yeah.
blue. It was that
Yes.
kind of blue, sparkling, and it. I thought this has got a charge in it, and that's why the witch can live in it because it's a thinking crystal. You know, because crystals hold and send frequency. So I was like, wow. And so I walk in and it's crackling a little blue across it, you know, and we go in, they show us where the Indian skeletons have been found in the cave and all that. And they also said, and when I came in, the whole, as you came in, the whole inside of the opening was covered with these big, fuzzy, bunchy spiders. Now, I am not scared of the devil himself, but I am scared of a fuzzy, bunchy spider. There wasn't one fuzzy, bunchy spider. There were, I don't even know how to tell you. The walls were covered. And they said, it's the mating season of the buffalo spider. Don't touch them, don't bother them, and they'll leave you alone. And I thought, ooh. And as I was really phobic of spiders at that time. I've gotten better about it. But I thought, oh Lord, if one gets on me, oh Lord, oh Lord. And so past where the Indian were buried, where the grave was, there was a Fat Man Squeeze tunnel that goes to back where then they have a graded off place that so you can't go into the cave further. And I just knew I felt very drawn to it. My witch friend Lori Shaw had told me later on. She said the local witches say, "Oh, she'll talk to you. She loves to talk. She's very intelligent." And all I knew about the Bell Witch at that time was what I'd read.
Right.
So I was determined to get down there to the end of that cave. Well, there were people going in there, coming out, but I was able. But when I was going through the Fat Man Squeeze, which I was very skinny at the time, but I accidentally touched the wall and it moved,
Oof.
and you could feel it, you know. And I was like, I I was skinny. I was a rail. I was like 118 pounds, 6 foot two. But I folded myself like an envelope and I said, if one of those things gets on me, someone's dying. Someone's staying here as a ghost because I am getting out of this cave. But I was so desperate to get back there, I just went, all right, you're gonna do it. And then it was kind of dangerous getting through the cave, walking. So you had to watch because if you slid, you had to put your hand on the wall. Well, the wall was covered in millions of spiders. I've never seen so many in my life. And I got through to the where the cave is, where they graded off so you can't go further. And they hear screaming and stuff and crying coming from there sometimes. So when I was back there, I started channeling a little bit. Nobody was around me. And I touched the wall across from it. And it's like, it was a real weird effect. When I touched the wall with my right hand, it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And when it happened, I heard look down and I saw this leather shoe with a very long leather tip. And they call them a poulain. I'd seen them before, I just didn't, you know, I went, I've seen that before. Why am I seeing her shoes? And, you know, it's like it was an interdimensional layer. So
Okay.
I got to see the foot and the shoe, and I thought, well, why am I seeing that? I want to see the rest of her. And but there were other people coming, so I didn't get to see any more than that, and it just kind of, you know, went back. And what the shoe was, it had like a 12-inch leather tip out from the shoe. So I'd seen a little bit of the Bell Witch, but I didn't know what that meant at the moment. So we did our thing. They did a little investigating of their own, and we went home. And, we left. Got the hell out of Spider Cave and left. And this happened like the week before Halloween, so it had been about like this time. So if you go a little earlier, because apparently that's you can ask them when the buffalo spiders are out. Because I'm scared more of that than I am a sport. So we go home. I never did hear any response of whatever they recorded or whatever they did. Nothing,
Mhm.
nothing. Crickets. That happens a lot with ghost investigations with me in that past. It's like you go in, you do your work, you bust your butt, you do your thing, or your derriere, and you just get crickets. They just don't tell you. But Cynthia and I are real close friends, so we were discussing all of it. And so I went home. I drew what I saw of the shoe, and I thought, well, okay, it's interesting. Then later on, I looked it up, and it was a 14th, 15th century shoe, Italian shoe, that it had like a 12-inch stick point thing, and aristocrats wore those. And that's why I only got to see the shoe.
So,
And so I thought, okay, so her creator, her original creator, um, from what when I later on when I channeled her just a few years ago, I did a channeling session. She loves to talk, and she's not gonna hurt anybody because she's not. She was drummed up to do a job. She did her job. Now she's her own free agent, and she likes to talk. So I worked in this other place that I had two other psychics with me, and I channeled her. And I've got a recording of it where when she's coming in, it sounds like a storm coming through my mouth. And I thought, well, that's probably what they were hearing when she started, when they'd hear these strange gurgling and weird noises. She was coming through vibrationally trying to find out how to vocalize. Then when she found the right frequency, she can talk. So I will and later on I'll send you the picture and I'll show you, the clip of the vocalization.
just a warning, guys. This is Mark beginning to channel the Bell Witch as she then enters him and he channels her. So if you're easily disturbed or if you have children listening, do me a favor and skip ahead about 3 minutes. It's quite disturbing.
Welcome. I'm glad that we were able to meet with you again, Bill. I just have a few more questions for you, if that's all right.
But
Please do.
and it scared the hell out of everyone. When I channel, you'll see the people superimposed, you'll whatever. And so what I got out of talking to her, which she was quite intelligent, delightful, scared the psychic that was supposed to be asking questions, and they got scared and wanted to shut it down because they got scared. And I was like, don't do that. And then, my inside, I'm having to hold my channel open. I'm like, don't do that. Ask questions. You've got something here to talk to. So next time I have to have someone who isn't scared, because he was
Will there be a
scared. She was
next?
going
Will
to
there
eat
be a
him.
next time?
Oh, yeah. I could do it. I could do it on this show if you want to. Um,
Are you kidding me?
no, I'll do it. I'll do it, and you can film it. And if we can do the channeling, you can see the what happens in the channeling.
Okay, and then I can ask
Um,
questions.
yeah, as
Fair
long as
enough.
you ain't scared. She said she don't like scaredy cats. She wants people to ask her questions and she'll answer.
Okay.
But what I got out of it was that the person who originally constructed her was a rich Italian who got got executed. So for whatever, probably witchcraft. But in those days, in the 1500s, where that aristocratic thing, so whoever it was, they were rich. And they created her through putting consciousness together through ancient means, so she was with him until he was executed. And then what happens with consciousnesses sometimes that are not souls exactly, but they're conscious. They have their own thing,
Hmm.
but they have their own dimensional layers they can live in. And then people who do magic, what they do is they take, if they have any of the ancient recipes basically to reach that level or to reach that icon of information, they can click it, access the energy, take it, then apply their message to it, and then use it and charge it up and send it off on its way. And so she was, after he was used by someone else, and then when it came this time, after the original Kate Batts died, she was free. Nobody could touch her. And the thing is, now there were things used to conjure her that don't exist anymore. There are certain grasses and things like that that are just extinct. So
Wow.
you cannot conjure her in that way. Actually, I think if you tried to conjure her to control her, that would be a mistake because you have to know how to do all that. And she told me that there are certain these grasses and things that are just they're gone. So it's the construct used to make, control, and summon. There's no way to redo it. So she's her own consciousness, and she lives in the cave because it has its own energy. It makes its own energy and keeps her alive. It keeps her. She's alive in a crystal, basically. So,
Fascinating.
but yeah, if you want to do a channeling of it, so on here we'll do it. If as long as
I
you
it
can.
would be. I was thinking about it as you were talking. It would probably be me, a friend of mine who's also a witch, a green
Yeah.
witch. He's a green witch. Oh yeah. I don't know how I would pull that off. I would have to have good
Like we're
internet
doing
connection.
this, we do it like this. The
Yeah, it would.
frequency sometimes can screw up electronics, but I can try and put a precept into that it not for it to just to keep it from
Okay.
disturbing the frequency. Because what happens a lot of times is when it does, it'll turn the cameras will turn off, everything will turn off. But we can try and do a. I can kind of try to go around that.
Do
But we would
you
do it
have
like
to?
this.
Yeah. Do you have to cast protection spells beforehand?
Yeah, I would do all that from here. And
Okay.
if you have
I'll.
if you have a green witch coming with you, you just
Uh-huh.
do have them do a circle for you and or show you how to do your circle and just do a couple of days of meditation of just in be
For
ready.
okay.
And but she loves to talk,
Okay.
so and she's not going to
Yeah,
hurt anybody.
it's that sounds very interesting. I would talk to him. I'm going to talk to him because I know you, of course, but I know him
Yeah.
a little bit better. He's already cast protection for
Okay.
me before, which has worked.
Oh.
Uh, yes, we had a foul player within our midst on my podcast that I had to delete and kind of like distance myself. And
Yeah.
he was
We know
trying to
it.
do some funky stuff while I was sleeping, and
Mm. We
and
know it.
even my
I've
girlfriend.
known those people. Yeah, that kind of
Even
thing.
my
Yeah.
girlfriend's seen a. She's Mayan, so she's seen a snake in her dreams enter the house,
Yeah.
and she was like, so that was like okay. And then
He
I
was
had
trying
it
to come
where
in. He was trying to sneak in. Snake in the
I would,
grass.
but I kind of suspected it coming, so I kind of told. We kind of it's a group, my buddies, are like the core group of my friends in the podcast, and they were like, he was like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and if this happens, don't worry because your ancestors are protecting you. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I
Okay.
don't know what that means, but
Yeah. Well,
that was
and before we do anything, if it's something you decide you would like to do, I mean, I will do all the preparation here. I will make sure it's only through, right here, and then after it's finished, then I disconnect, and then the energy goes back to where it's at.
so there'd be no
So
like
it came from.
hitchhiker effect on my behalf.
No,
No.
nope. And nobody caught looking at it should be able to say, nope, nope, nope. They don't understand the work I do. It's like, nope, it's not getting out of here. But of course, but if she gets the chance to talk, she loves to talk. So,
Okay,
and that might be an interesting thing
conversation.
to see. But that's an option. I haven't given
Yeah,
that option to anybody before. So if you want to see it, we can do it.
you're going to test me. You're going to test to see if I would want to do it. But I would definitely. I'm going to talk to some
Oh,
people
I think
first.
you. I mean, you're interested. So
Yes.
if it's something that you feel like you can do, we could do it, and we could do it and pre-record it, and then you
Hmm.
could see if it's something you want people to be experienced, to
Right.
experience.
Okay.
Because if they're freaked out by it, just put a little pre-warning. It says this is a channeling. Don't watch it if it's going to disturb you.
I might have to put it at the very beginning, or maybe I
Yeah,
just put it in a separate little thing, and then
yeah,
let my
yeah,
friends check it and go, "Oh, it's okay, Tom," and
yeah.
we'll have a
Because when I
discussion, and then
channel, I do a veil splitter kind of thing where I build up frequency. I do this. I did. It's real weird when it happens. But it's just my ancient normal way of doing it, and
okay,
I'll channel on camera, and
I
then if you
would
catch
channel
anything, you got it.
you would channel it on camera.
I would
That's
channel
or
her.
her. Hmm,
She
interesting.
acknowledged because
She's
she took
ignored.
on. She was actually created with the feminine aspect.
Okay.
But when she was pulled in by Kate, she took on more of Kate's attributes because
Okay.
Kate died. So she was like an extension of Kate taking vengeance on John. She didn't like the way he did things and was doing her sister and how he did her. So,
Uh huh.
she just was like, um, she was just Kate. She was a bigger version of the living Kate. And so she just took on that persona. but she's an
Right.
energy, a consciousness that was created by a very intelligent magician back in the day. And when he was killed, then she went into the system. Someone else used her before Kate, and then Kate did that in the 1800s,
So
and then that
apparently,
was the last time. Hmm.
apparently, Kate was also a very powerful sorceress herself.
Well, I'd say she was a good old European witch. And they thought she was crazy, but I think she's probably crazy as a fox. But
Right.
they picked the wrong person to think they could get her.
Right.
And she had enough anger and enough skill. It doesn't matter if you are highly educated or not. I mean, I'm not highly educated, but I can do some pretty interesting stuff. But if you have it natural or it's passed down, it probably was in her family.
Right.
The skill or the connection to it, and
Right.
she, because of her anger, because her husband had died, she had children, and John allegedly, I think, uh, did her over,
Did her bad.
and
Yeah. I
then
think her
she was
husband was
dying.
actually like he was disabled somehow or something.
Yes,
It was something like
and
that. Yeah. Yeah.
she was having a hard time, and here
Yeah.
he is trying to steal what she had, and he stole what she had.
Right.
So, and then her sister and him are living grand right there, and no one can help. No one is helping her, I don't think, or they just went, "Oh, that's the crazy woman." Well, in those days, I mean, they just did. If the, there are so many people that were just done in. I mean, what
Yeah.
was anybody gonna do? It's like, well, you're a woman, so what?
It happens.
And
It
what can
happens
you
all the
do?
time. Happens today too. Trust me. Happens today too,
And oh,
especially
it
here.
happens today too. And see that she found a way to do what she couldn't do physically. If she
Right.
could have physically, and for good reason. And so she did. She one upped it, and and the Bell Witch did her job. But she'd been programmed. It's like when Kate pulled her forth, the intent she put into her, that was the intent, and she did it. And as soon as that was done, she was free, because a
Right.
lot of spirits from magic are really slaves, slave labor.
Okay.
But a lot of times, if the magician or witch or anything, if they're creating something that takes a lot of energy, which this one takes a lot of energy, uh, then at some points, if they do something the spirit doesn't like, if they do something where they mess up because people get tired and they do things, or they don't keep it's like a contract or covenant, and a lot of people
You're
don't
into the
keep
bargain.
it up. And once the minute they see a loophole, then they go, I'm out of here. Or they turn the tables, and the person can be then maneuvered by the spirit or by the consciousness. So, and some
Would
people
you ever
deserve
worried
it.
about that? If you're
Huh?
doing something like, if you're channeling something like the Bell Witch, wouldn't you be
No,
concerned?
what I do with channeling, I coat my channel, my shallow, and my throat. I do so much meditation and work before I do it that it sometimes I can connect to them without them having to come in. She comes in. I mean, she's just that kind of old school. But it's already got a Teflon coating. After it's done, out of I ejected out of the energy out of my shallow, out of my solar plexus, and you don't
Okay.
get infected. And I've done it before with her. She's very Very interesting. But it's also, she wants interesting questions.
Okay, I'm
She doesn't,
definitely.
and the person questioning, I didn't realize at the time they have a lot of little, it's kind of like they have a lot more Pegasus and rainbows and butterfly kind of thing, and they got scared by talking to something that they were fascinated, but they were scared because
Okay.
they hadn't seen a channeling before. Because when I was coming up, there were in the '80s there was an explosion of channelers, and they go, "I am," and people go, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah." And there was one that I listened to one time. Um, he's gone now. I would say his name, but he he thought he was channeling, but and these little old women would go to him, and he would start channeling, and then he'd hit on them or talk about
Uh,
their their
Stuff.
their
Yeah.
biological things that
Hmm.
in a way, if I always wanted to go in drags just so as though because he wouldn't know who I was, and punched him out, because I thought there I don't see how women don't just beat the stew out of you. And so he was awful. But we had a lady who's now deceased, who's a psychologist, who put me through my first past life regression. Um, she had a recording. She went to him, and it was a cast of thousands. He would sit there and go, "I am now Mother
Okay.
Murray. I am Jesus. I am now the devil. And now that I am the devil, if I asked you to go get a drink with me, would you do it?" And, you know, I was like, "What's
Scumbags, man.
that?" And he would hit on the women when he was channeling. And so that was the '70s and '80s version of some channeling. Now, I saw a man do a channeling one time where he channeled Marilyn Monroe. It put the spooks on me. I loved it. It was great. You could see the spirit sliding into the body.
Wow.
And but mine is because I'm a witch and a little bit, you know, I have spiritualist roots, witch roots. I have ancestors who were uh, into things, even though they were Christian, they were into magic systems, Golden Dawn and stuff like that, through the Masons and the whatevers. So I have kind of that in my genes, in my genetics, and I'm related to Francis Bacon, Sir Francis Bacon, who was in the Rosicrucians, who
Okay.
was into magic, was into all of this stuff. And I thought, I've got that stuff coming out my.
So,
Mm.
so you're
So,
telling me that being a witch is like I'm asking because I don't know,
yeah,
is kind of heretical.
can be. It helps. I actually, a lot of us probably don't know that we have that because I didn't know my great grandmother was called a witch. We had never met her. My grandfather had never met his mother. She was great great grandmother. And because his mother divorced his father, and we never saw them, and he never saw them. And but she was a spiritualist, and she goes, "She's a witch," and we thought, she meant like, misspelled it with a B, and she
Uh
went,
huh.
"No, she's a witch." And then we found out later she was a spiritualist, and her husband came in when he was 50, said, "I'm retired, do something." So she was a spiritualist. So she started doing readings and seancing and made a living because her husband retired.
How do you?
And go ahead.
Sorry, Mark. This is. How do you know? Say,
No,
for example, it's it's just an interest of mine. How do you know if you are? spiritualist,
Hmm.
a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a fae. What do they call those people? They're
Yeah, yeah.
what
When they
is
have it.
uh not a naturalist. What's the word I'm looking for? An elemental or which?
Yeah.
How do you? Is there a certain thing you notice, or is there certain things that happen that you notice? Do you see certain things? Is it a feeling? What is it that made you go, okay, I'm sitting on this church pew right now at 11 or whatever you said it
Hmm.
was, and you're like,
Well,
oh my golly, I'm a witch. How do you? How did you come to that? I mean, where does
well,
that
the
come from?
first thing I noticed when I was sitting on the pew in the church is the flames coming around me when they were talking to me about, they were going, gay people. And I was like, ooh.
Hmm.
And then, I thought, because they're very hateful about that. And then I knew I was seeing dead people. I couldn't tell my mother or anything like that. And when I did when I was
Okay.
16, so I was seeing dead people. I saw a dead person in a haunting that in my grandparents' house. I didn't know it was haunted. And I saw the ghost. And I was like 6 and I was playing in the yard, la 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 la. And they had a scary basement. It was scary. And I was around the back of the house, and there was this basement had a room that they had little lace curtains in.
Okay.
And then I saw them moving, and I thought, well, what's that? Who's that? And I got up close, and this very dead person. I'd never seen a dead person like a dead person. I'd seen people in a funeral home,
All right.
but they were very decomposed. But they were gray, kind of leathery. Their eyes were just black goo, and their hair was sticking up on the broken off and sticking up and very scary looking. And it was
Looks like that
looking at
monster
me.
from looks like the
Yeah,
monster from what's the name of that Eddie from that band from
yeah,
England, Iron Maiden.
I'd made. But
Yeah,
it's like, but I hadn't seen any of that stuff. I was 6 years old,
right.
and it was looking at me. And then when it saw I could see it, it backed up and backed away, and I was like, oh,
Oh
oh, we're not
shit.
going to go down there. I'd been playing in the basement, and everything, and I was like, we're not going in there. And my cousin later,
This is
when their
your inner
mother had
voice.
died, I
Your
was
inner
like,
voice. Is it a feminine Mickey Mouse?
my little voice was going. I had a real high chiclet. I was a little chiclet teeth, little high voice thing going. Well, we'll play over there. And later on, when I was 16, I saw the ghost in the house. And it would be there was a little Southern Belle looking girl who would shoot. It was a silhouette would run through the house, checking the doors, checking everything, and then this guy would come in, and then it would be all this noise and stuff, and then it would stop. And my grandmother had died, and I was having to watch it, and I started seeing them when I was 16. And I told my mother, I was like, I think Granny's house is haunted. She said, we thought that was her cataracts. The little ghost had scared the hell out of her, and she said she would be in her room, and here would come this little woman looking through everything, like she was running through the house trying to find something, probably a gun, and was checking the doors, and then there would be this man come through, and she hadn't told my grandfather, and my grandfather was sitting in the kitchen one day, and this man comes through the door, goes into the hallway and disappears. He goes, what's that? And she told him. They knew all of this, didn't tell me. And I'd been seeing it when I was little. I saw it in the basement, and my cousin said when she was living there after her mother died, my grandparents raised her for a while, and they made her an art room in that room in the basement. She said, I was so scared to go down there. She said, I would go out and sit on the front steps. You could, because they never came out on the porch. And she'd act like she'd gone out, gone in the basement, and she'd come back and say, oh, I went down there and worked, because
So you're
everybody was scared.
wait. So
Oh,
you're
yeah, which,
seeing. So you're seeing these. These
yeah.
apparitions, these dead people, and that like. So what was the next step to realizing that you are what you are when it comes to being a witch?
I think well, of course, when I was, what was it, 65? I think it was in '66 or '67 when I was about 4 years old. I think when Dark Shadows started, and it was a big deal, and we started watching it when they my mother started watching it when Barnabas comes out of the casket. So she was hooked on it. I got hooked on it because I was there at home with her. I wasn't in school yet. And I was exposed to knowing what witches were. There was a witch on there, but she was always putting hexes on everybody, doing bad stuff. But beautiful, beautiful witch. And I was like fascinated with her. And not what she was doing, because she would do, things out of anger and hurt and stuff. But I was like, the way that there's something about that vibrates, that resonates. So when I was 11, I went, I'm not that kind of witch. And then I went to the school library, found this book, and started looking at, and everything that was available was the Christian version of witches, which they go, they're devil worshippers taking baby skin, fat, and rubbing on, because, that in Europe and stuff, they annihilated anyone that was pagan, anyone that was not them. Even when Queen Elizabeth was in, when they were changing religions, if you didn't switch to the religion they told you to, they'd kill you. They would take someone up, make an example, draw and quarter them, torture them, say, if you don't do what we want you to, we'll do this to you. So, or you want to get burned, you want to be
Mhm.
pulled by horses, we can do it. And so people would go, well, we'll just start coming to your church. And
By hook or crook.
but sometimes the local pagans would build little symbols of their gods in there, so that when they're in there acting like they were, praising Jesus, they were looking at their gods. And I just knew I wasn't that kind of witch, but I knew I was a witch. And so it spoke to me.
Okay.
But the stuff that I saw wasn't what to my liking. But when I was 18 and I met this person who was a witch, um, he started spouting Wicca, which Wicca was still fairly new. It had been around here in America. I think it came in the 30s, 40s, kind of thing, through Gerald Gardner and all that. And so he was talking Wicca, and I went, because I just changed from being a little Christian, and to me, Wicca was like a Christian witch, because harm none, do what you will, live with the earth, become one, and I was very the testosterone driven Christianity that I was raised in, which, um, whew, where they demonized all the women except for Mother Mary,
Right.
except she had been an impregnated woman, not married, you know. Uh, so I'm really a goddess based person. Because you need that empathy and that nurturing, and with the male aspect, if you have too much testosterone, you get the war. You get the, da da da. And then people don't think women can uh, be warriors. You ain't never pissed a woman off. And, if they think you're bad for babies, we need more of that. We need people who go after the people who are bad for children. And so when I met him, and I went, this is it. And then I was friends with him for years. And we did, he exposed me to a lot of mystical, magical things. And he had some aspects of doing stuff I've never seen before, I don't want to see again, that I thought I didn't understand what I was looking at because I was still young and I hadn't been expanded yet. And so he had some abilities, but what it took to get those abilities was not what I wanted to do.
Right.
And but he liked to shock people, and he could.
Okay.
And then he lived in a house that there was so much activity, and he's going, oh yeah, this is my guide who was with me when I was born, and because there was a ghost and a thing he would call, he had a name for it. I'm not going to say its name. And I saw it, and it was dead looking. Most spirits don't look dead. This one looked very
Oh
dead,
wow.
and I thought, he goes, "Oh, it's been with me my whole life. He's my guide, my." And I thought,
Oh wow.
okie dokie. And then, but his house was so active, and I didn't realize it's because he had a open circle that from his original coven circle, when the guy died, they just left it running. So in the house it's in, it's still running. They had to tear the house down after 40 years. I watched it for 40 years, making sure what would happen with it. And because you could hear it and feel it and see it, and it was funky. But all of the people off of that coven, when they started their circles, they just made a little like a black hole to it, a little extension, like a fiber
Okay.
optic tether. And
Okay.
then he was using energy from the people, because he was trained by someone who was in the real dark arts and wasn't shy about it. And they had been doing things that I didn't know until later. And but they connected their circles to that old circle, and it was up and like I said, until about 10 years ago, the house still existed, but it had been boarded up since the 70s because anyone that went in would see reenactments, shadow
Oh
people,
my God.
da da da, just crazy stuff. And I
Wow.
didn't know that. I didn't know that, and here I am, the simple little Baptist who trusts that what you tell me is I'm what I expect. And his house, there was a mirror in the hallway. We had to change because if you were sitting in the living room, something was running past all the time. Your cans of drinks or whatever would move around on the tables and stuff. It was fascinating, but it was not what he was saying it was. And so when he started to do the coven that I joined, um, then is this too much stuff to tell you? Is this
No,
too weird for
no,
your show? Okay,
no. It's not.
so when we were in the end, when I came into it, we were still. It was like a leftover of the occult. It wasn't New Age yet, and it was turning into New Age. But we were. He had been trained by an occultist, and a very violent one apparently. And he was passing himself off as very, a whole different thing. He was good
Okay.
at the, and I was young, I was green. But when the first time he saw me, he went, "Your energy." He made fun of me first because of my voice. I sounded like Leg Cup from Taxi. Um, but he made jokes about it. But since I didn't um, get
Andy
offended, I
Kaufman?
thought,
Andy
yes,
Kaufman?
yes. That's a if you hear Andy Kaufman's voice on Taxi, that is what when I was 16 and 17, that's what I sounded like. But I had no friends because, of course, who wants to be friends with a target? And then when he saw I wasn't offended, because everybody hated me, everybody was offended by me because I was embarrassing. I was skinny, I was hunchbacked, I was shy, and then when I talked, I talked like that. And so then he saw my energy, and he was like, "You, I see you." And so I felt like, this was a person. At one point I didn't think I would ever not have this person in my life.
Wow.
And so, and I was a very close friend. But when it turned into when we did the coven, and then I was the first one about to get my third degree, and that's when they clamped down and were going, "Well, here's what we're really going to do." And I was like, no, not for me. And then he grabbed me by the arm and said, "You can't do that," you know. And then he told me about what happened in their other group, which is they had people in there, you know. And this is where if anyone comes to me and calls me brother, it's like run, boom, turn and
Wow.
run,
True.
because I was his brother. And he got me by the arm, pulled me real close, and said, because he had told me some things, but he told me this because he thought he had enough of grip on me that I would just fall in place.
Right.
And I had for a lot of things, you know. I mean, I really was a little groupie, but I was like a little little hippy dippy groupie. And he then started telling me about their, really what they used to do, and they had these people that wanted to leave their group, and there was the last one that they had. They went to as a group to his door and passed judgment on him and took his energy.
Oof. Okay.
And he was letting me know that's what would happen to me, and thought that would make me fall in place.
Oh my lord. So he like threatened your life.
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, they took credit for my attack. They were saying they did that. They wanted me dead because now I knew something. I knew elements of his past, but I didn't know that. And that was a game changer. I went, no, I am a what I'm signed up for is being a Wiccan.
Okay.
And being a little witch and doing my thing, helping people, being a little kitchen witch. And I was like, no. And
Yeah.
but because the way it was, he had threatened me, you know, and it was getting close to my third degree. And the whole thing was, if you get your third degree, then you can hive off. And I'd known other people that had hived off from his other group. So at that time, I thought, well, I get my third degree, get out of here. But when he did that, I thought, oh, I've got to get out of here. And I didn't know how, without getting.
Wow.
And then it was moving closer. And then one time I came in and they had one of their, he would have acting priests come in. And this Blackfoot Indian guy was one of the acting priests at the time when I left. And I came in, and it was supposed to be coming up my third degree, and they had the acting priest brought in this big Necronomicon, by
Hmm.
H.R. Giger, and he goes, "Oh, well, I hope that because the other person, Stuart, the guy who ran it, had a lisp." You want to talk about somebody who people thought was gay, even though he's married and straight and shouldn't have never been. Um, I called him bug-eyed Nazi behind his, uh, but he had a little bit of a lisp. So this guy, this priest, I come in. I mean, 2 days before my ceremony, supposedly, and um, there's the Necronomicon. There, and he goes, "Oh, I hope, sir, I didn't say the wrong words with his lisp." And I went, I gotta get out of here. This is not what I signed up for.
Right.
And so, and the opening came, because they wanted to get rid of me when they realized I wasn't going to be a Manson child, Manson girl. And so, out of all the years, they went, "Are you gay?" And I went, "Yes!" And I got the hell out of there. And then about a year and a half to, all during the while, once I was out of there, because they were going, "Well, gay people don't have any place in Wicca." And I was like, "See ya later." And I didn't have any place there. Take my word for it. And I didn't realize it would be that easy to get away from the group. but then they started magically trying to do their things. And then after I recovered from my attack, they kept trying to come see me. And I just refused it. And then when I worked at a metaphysical store, he sent his people to harass me. And then one night he was going to send this one guy, this girl that was in the group that knew me, his new group of teenagers. She called me and said, "There, watch out! They're going to send someone to do something to you." And I did a binding that did it all, and it closed down their energy. And then they started coming in the store, going, "What did you do?" And I went, "I don't know what you're talking about." And just try and do something.
Wow.
And when they did, then they started dying because it was I tied their energy to them. It was their choice. If they
So
wanted
yeah.
to, I wasn't going to be a victim to them doing. And the spirits that they used to try and hurt me didn't like what they did, so it turned against their
Wow.
own magic. They hit me with something, but it turned on them because they didn't have enough understanding control, and they were wanting to. When you build up negativity, you have to sustain it, and they weren't sustaining it, so
Okay.
there you
So
go.
fantastic. I got to get you up out of here, man. I actually got to do some cooking. You know how it
Oh,
is.
okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to talk so much.
No, dude, are you kidding me? This is it's been an honor to hear that. That's a lot to share. It's a
It's a
lot to share,
lot.
and
The
that
body fell out of the closet.
you would tell me about it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
pretty cool,
why not? People need to hear it.
right?
Because if you go out there and get into something, you always have to keep your own power yourself because other
You have to be
people will
careful.
misuse it and will take it. So
Oh
don't
yeah,
ever.
even you offering me, I don't know you. You offering me doing the channeling of the bell witch
Yeah,
definitely has my antennas up. So I'm going to
okay.
talk to somebody that I know and I trust
Okay.
who dabbles. I think you are quite a few grades above my friend. I'm just guessing. I don't know how all that
Well,
works, but I
everyone
would
has
def-
their levels.
yes, but I would
I'm
definitely
not
talk to him
above or
first.
below. I'm just who I
You're
am.
just here. You're there, dude. Mark, once again, you come in and blow my mind. I will definitely know. I will. It's going to take me a minute to sort it all out. Maybe I'm going to take these recorded episodes, give them to him, and let him see what he thinks
See if
about it.
he's comfortable. Yeah.
See if he's
If he's
comfortable.
comfortable.
See if he, yeah,
Yeah.
and then he. Well, I'll talk with him and see how comfortable I am with it. But I'm definitely interested.
And we'll pre-record it, and that way you can tell if it is not for others to see, then we won't put it out there. But if it
Fair
is,
enough.
but when I channel, I'm telling you, weird things happen. So
Okay. Okay.
just be
As
prepared,
long as
but
you
it
promise
will
you're
be
throwing up,
safe.
if you're throwing up your protection spells,
Oh,
and my buddy
honey.
throws up
Well,
his protection spells, and I'll do what you
yeah,
asked me to do.
yeah.
All is just I just want to be an observer,
I will have it
and
all contained within my sphere.
fair
And
enough, Mike.
so it ain't gonna. And two, she just likes to talk. So it's not like you're talking to a demon. She's not a demon. She's just an energy that's on her own now. She's free,
Okay,
a
all
free
right, man.
agent.
Anything else you
So
wanna? Anything you wanna? Is there any like friends, or I know you're making a cookbook coming up soon. You
I
are
have the
doing
cookbook, my Mino Grandma's good old cookbook. I'm going to be doing my Fat Psychic cooking show, cooking from the Mino Grandma's cookbook. And then I'm doing the Psychic Worm Stitch, which will explain all this stuff. How you can do
what's
it
the name of
yourself.
your stores of people in the area
Gypsy
happen to
Moon.
Gypsy
It's
Moon.
Gypsy Moon in Pea Ridge Flea Market in Pace, Florida. I don't have a website because right now I am a poor psychic. So, and those things chick money. And I haven't got a pole I can go dance on to make that money yet. But, but, and if I did, you would pay me to get out of your face. It would be like white. What is it? What the one where the guy was turned into a girl and then turned back into a guy while he's grabbing money, off the pole. But you would pay me to go away. But I have a store, Gypsy Moon Space. Now I'm trying to think my number. I think it's 27 at Pea Ridge Flea Market. It's hard to miss on Saturdays and Sundays. And then I just have all sorts of stuff going. So,
Yeah, we had the
and
music
then
thing that you were telling me about. There's quite a few things you got coming out.
I got some weird stuff going on. So we are going to try and make a lot of product for people to look at, and a lot of books. And I've
Okay.
got books out there. You can find my books if you put in my name, Mark Fults, Fults, on Amazon. It'll pull up all my books. So then you can just kind of track me down through that. You
Okay.
can come to my Facebook, Mark Elliott Fults,
Yeah.
with two L's, two T's.
Okay.
And you can always contact me on Facebook.
That's the
And
best way to
and I'm
contact
old
you.
and I'm slow, so I'll get around to it. If you ask me something, I will get there.
But you're,
I
but here,
am I'm slow physically. Well,
you're very
yeah, I've
quick.
been dropped on
Here
my
you're
head a
quick.
few times. I'm very slow, but
You're
I'm
like
very
you need to
slow
take
physically right now.
you need to put your head inside the. Do you know the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? They had that dude with the brain and the body, Krang.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you what. If you could see me full form, I mean, it's like, Igor. And I'm just, in the morning I pull open my casket, and at night I pull the casket back down. I go, oh, we're alive again. The next morning we made it.
That's, yeah,
So,
dude. So thank you
but
so much once again for gracing me and my audience with your presence. It's always interesting, always
thank you.
fascinating, and I will definitely
Thank.
get back to you about the thing we discussed. Okay?
Okay, well, thank you so much,
Thank you so
and
much.
y'all have fun.
Bye,
Bye
buddy.
now.
Bye, man. I cut him off in the middle of it. So that's my buddy, Mark Elliott Fults. And like I said, I got to do a lot of research into whether I'm going to do that or not, guys. I am very interested with shaking in my boots, but like Terrence McKenna says, the universe respects courage. So we'll see how far I get into it. I have a specific person that you all know. I won't mention his name right now, but because I'm going to have some conversations with him on the side, and I'm going to show him this episode. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the episodes, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. We are hopefully by now, this is coming out late November, maybe close to that 1,000 mark. Hopefully. If not, go ahead and give me a little boost there. You can also follow me on Rumble. You can also follow me on Spotify. You can check my email. You can become a member, get extra material earlier. There's a link down below in PayPal if you want to send me some bucks to upgrade my stuff. I got a new computer on the way coming. I got a different light today, as you guys can see. Working on my headphone situation. I still have to up that. I'm going to do some pre stuff. Well, I can't think of the right things, like pre-recording or live recording type stuff, like compression and things like that. All these things I have to learn. But anyway, it's super fascinating. Mark is super fascinating. I think maybe eventually we'll actually get into what happened on the day that his life was taken from him, maybe eventually, and the changes that therefore of. I'd have to talk to him to see if that's okay with him. If not, then I'm sure I'll find easily another reason to talk to Mark Fults. Anyway, remember, we are the eye, and we are aware. Love you all.